most difficult aspects to creating real terror is actually in the part where you make it scary. You know you want the people reading it to have fear, but it's hard to be able to translate that fear into a story. In today's video, I want to talk about how you can write way scarier scenes in your mangas, comics, or light novels and make them terrify your audience. Hi everyone, if you don't already know me, my name is Renette Cross, and on this channel I dedicate all my videos to helping you turn your manga into a masterpiece. If you're new to my channel, please consider hitting that little subscribe button. It really helps support me and my channel, and it also ensures that you never miss a new video. I upload new videos every week on how to create an amazing manga, comic, or light novel, and you really don't want to miss them. So first of all, let's discuss what makes horror so scary. I personally believe that one of the biggest aspects that makes horror scary is in the psychological aspects. If you look at horrors that are considered to not be scary, you will notice that they usually involve a lot of blood and monsters. However, the truly scary horror films, the ones that really make people feel scared, are the ones that dive deep into the viewer's mind. They manipulate their biggest fears and sometimes even create new fears that might not have even been considered before. So now let's get fully into this video where I'll give you 12 tips on how to write scarier scenes in your mangas, comics, or light novels. My first tip is make your readers fall in love with your characters. One of the key ways to make your book scarier is to actually ensure that your audience loves your characters. They have to like your characters so much that they're going to be really scared for something bad to be happening to your characters. Now, in order to ensure that your audience really likes your characters and they care about what happens to them, you need to ensure that your characters are realistic and they make realistic and believable choices in your book. When your character is making believable choices but also being the certain characters that drive the story and keep things interesting, your audience will naturally feel more compelled to read more to see what will happen to them. I also recommend that you give every character in your book a really important goal that they must achieve, because if they have a goal that your audience cares about as well, they're not going to want anything bad to happen to your characters, because they're going to want to ensure that your characters will achieve their goals and get to be in the place that they want to be in. My second tip is set the stakes high. One thing I've noticed in a lot of horror movies is that there are many cases where the characters in the movie don't really have to go through the pain or the difficult situations in the movie. They could just turn around and go home and everything would be fine. However, in your book, you really need to ensure that your character has a reason to have to go through the events, otherwise your audience might wonder the same thing. You need to ensure that your audience understands why your character is there and why your character needs to experience these difficult events. In order to do this, you need to set the stakes high in your story, giving your characters a really drastic reason why they must do this, otherwise something bad, something difficult will happen. Now, this really ties into your character's goals. Now, for example, in horror movie fashion, maybe someone really important to your character has been taken by the bad monster or the bad creature in your book, and the only way to get that person they really care about back is to go through these difficult events and find the creature and get that person back. In another example, maybe your character has lost something really dear and important to them. Maybe this item has really magical properties and it could change the way the entire story unfolds. And so if something bad has happened, if that item is lost, your character may have to go through these bad events in order to get that item back and essentially save their world or save the world of your book. So in order to set the stakes high in your book, you need to consider why your character needs to go through these events and what will happen if they fail. If your character fails, there needs to be a dire consequence as a result of the fact that they did not achieve the things that they had to achieve in your book. And when you set the stakes high, your audience is going to be more likely to want to read more to see if your character will make it through and if your character will achieve the goals that they must achieve in your book. My third tip is use the rule of 3 in your foreshadowing. Now, this is what I call the 3-step jump scare method, and it's a great way to make scarier scenes in your book. So whether you're writing a manga, comic, or light novel, I highly recommend you consider how you can add the 3-step jump scare method in those scenes. Basically, what you do is in the first 2 scenes, you lead your audience into a false sense of security. You have 2 major scenes that seem really calm and your audience feels calm and everything seems to be working out fine. But then in the third step, in this 3rd-step jump scare method, you then add the jump scare. You add the bad event or the bad situation, and that event is going to feel a lot more shocking now that you have led your audience into a false sense of security. So you slowly build up the tension by revealing these happy moments where your audience might be there saying, oh, everything might be fine now, and then all of a sudden you reveal this drastic turn of events where something dire happens or something bad happens or something scary occurs that really shocks your audience and your characters and creates a jump scare with this 3-step jump scare method. My fourth tip is focus on the unseen. If you want to make a scene scarier, focus more on how you can show the unknown rather than directly revealing the monster or the truth of the book directly to your audience. By focusing more on the unknown and putting the emphasis on what is unknown, it actually makes things a lot creepier because your audience's imagination will be the best way to scare them. And if you don't fully reveal the true danger of the book, your audience is not really going to know what they're really getting themselves into. If you want to create an unseen monster in your book, for example, instead of directly showing the monster, you show what the result of their actions are. You show their claw marks, or you show the destruction they've left behind. We show the way they've affected characters. Maybe characters return who have seen the monster and are absolutely terrified. And so your audience and the other characters in your book would be thinking, well, what kind of monster is this? Because after seeing all these little clues as to what the monster is like, it makes it way more scarier because their imagination will run wild. Creating unseen horrors is what will help your readers to begin to truly fear, and it will create a much spookier atmosphere in your book. It's a good way to really drum up the tension in your book and make scenes that might seem simple or calm into scenes that could be far more terrifying because of the unknown aspects of those even simple moments. My fifth tip is focus on other senses. One great way to really amplify the tension in your mangas, comics, or light novels and make scary scenes a lot more scarier is to focus on your character's other senses. Now, the most common sense you will see focused on in horror will be your character's sight. They'll be seeing the events. However, it's important to also think about your character's hearing, the things they touch, their sense of smell, their taste. So you really need to think about other senses other than them just seeing things and think about how that can add to the scarier moments in your book. For example, maybe your character is feeling along a wall in the darkness and suddenly they feel something sticky, or suddenly maybe they feel something crawling on their hand but they can't actually see it because it's too dark. Or your character could hear a noise in the darkness, some really strange and alarming noise, but they still can't really see where it's coming from, and so that could be really creepy as well. Your character might taste something unexpected, and so that can also be very alarming for your character. So as you can see, by focusing on other senses in a scary scene, you can really amplify certain moments to be a lot scarier. And you can also help to relate it to your audience as well, because your audience reading it may be able to also feel those senses within themselves, and that can make the scenes feel a lot more scarier and more personal as well. My sixth tip is get your characters out of their comfort zones. Your character might feel comfortable in a well-lit place, a place that is very safe and very comforting. However, in a scary story, you always want to try and get your characters out of the comfortable places and into a place that is a lot more dire and dangerous. So, even if your character manages to get to a comfortable place, think about how you can get your characters moving very quickly into a place that may seem a lot more creepier and suspenseful. Consider how you can always get your characters out of their comfort zones, because this will overall amplify the tension and suspense of your book and make scenes that may have already been scary a lot scarier. For example, maybe your character has just gotten out of a really terrifying place, but now they've found themselves in a beautiful flower field, filled with beautiful flowers and beautiful scenery. However, what your character may not realize is that this place is the scariest place of all in your book. It's important to find creative ways to deceive your readers and your audience in your book. And that brings me to my next tip. My seventh tip is deceive your readers. A good way to build your story up to a plot twist, which in turn makes the story a lot scarier, is to actually create a false villain or a false monster or even just a false situation to deceive your audience into thinking that is the truth. So for example, your audience and your characters may be led to believe a certain monster is the real culprit in this situation, but when your audience and your characters go through the story, they end up realizing that the truth of the story is something else entirely. And that can create really scary situations when your characters may realize that the threat was something different. In another example, maybe there's a situation that your characters think is safe, but it actually isn't, as I mentioned in the previous tip. So really think about how you can deceive your audience and deceive your readers into thinking a certain path or a certain aspect of the story is the truth. And then by the end, use that to create a plot twist that will reveal the truth to your audience and your characters and make your story a lot more shocking and creepy. My eighth tip is focus on the deepest psychological fears. Everyone struggles with certain psychological fears, and these fears would be something that all of your characters would face. So it's important to think about what each of your characters fear and how you can use your characters' fears to relate those scenes to your audience. For example, if a character has a fear of falling and they have to go through a dangerous situation where they may be at a tall height, people who are reading your book who also have a fear of heights would really be able to relate to what your character is facing. There are many different psychological fears that your characters may face, which your audience might be able to relate to as well. And while not every person who is reading your book may experience those fears, there will be likely people who are reading your book who have experienced those fears and do struggle with those phobias. And so you can use those fears and phobias in your book to help those people who are reading it to feel that fear factor and really feel scared of the moments that your characters are experiencing in your story. If you aren't sure what fears your audience might be facing, I recommend first looking at your own fears and terrors and try incorporating that into your book, because if it's something that you fear, it's going to be a lot easier for you to write about that fear first before moving on to other fears that you might necessarily not face yourself, but you may feel your audience might experience those fears too. My ninth tip is consider your word choices and imagery. Through the word choices you make or the images you show, you can make a certain scene that seems normal or calm into something a lot scarier. A table can seem a lot scarier, for example, if you describe certain marks on the table, the way the table is colored, the overall feeling of the table, and so there are many everyday objects or everyday calm things that you could describe in certain ways to make them seem a lot creepier. You could describe normal everyday objects as being broken or dull or wilted or pale or things like that, and think about how you can use unpleasant words to describe something that may normally be seen as something pleasant. Now you can use this same tactic if you're creating a manga or a graphic novel. Simply look at the image that you're wanting to create and think about how you can shade it or present it in a certain way to make it a lot creepier than it actually is. Word choices and the way you shade things play a big role in making certain aspects of your book seem a lot more scarier. My 10th tip is speed up or slow down the pacing to suit the scene. In a scene leading up to a jump scare or a scary moment, you might slow down the pacing of your story, which will be showing your character's thoughts or feelings in the scene, showing your character creeping towards the moment, and so just slowing down with your character's reactions and their thought process as they are approaching a scary moment. As you're getting to the jump scare and after the jump scare, you might end up speeding up the pacing by showing the scenes a lot faster, showing the scary moment, and then showing your character's reaction, like your character might start running, which would in turn cause the scene to speed up a lot by you showing the images faster or describing the scene faster with shorter sentences. When we get scared, our heart rate goes up. So when your characters are scared in your book, also consider how you can speed up the pacing to match your character's heart rate. My 11th tip is show your readers why they should be scared. If something looks or feels unsettling, it can also make your audience feel very unsettled as well. Instead of your characters directly telling your audience why the readers should be scared, you can show it instead. You can show the results of these dark events that might be happening in the course of your book, whether it's a monster or an unseen terror in your book. You can show the result of those events, and that can be really scary to your audience. Your audience might see the result of dire situations that have occurred in your book, and that can also make your scenes a lot creepier. So in whichever scenes you're creating, think about how you can show your readers why they should be scared in that scene, and that in turn will make your audience feel a lot more scared when you are revealing these terrifying moments. And my final tip, my 12th tip, is leave your readers in the dark until the very end. It is better to leave your audience in the dark and not reveal the full truth to them until the very end. By doing this, you can build up the suspense and tension over the book by creating unseen terrors and unseen scary events and slowly reveal clues towards the truth of the book. And then by the end, you can reveal the truth, reveal the monster, or the real true scariness of the situation. And because you have spent all that time leading up to a plot twist or a scary moment, it will overall make your book a lot scarier. Once the truth of your book is revealed, that makes it a little bit less creepier, so I recommend keeping your readers in the dark as much as possible throughout your scary story in order to make it scary from beginning to end. So thank you so much for watching my video today, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of scary stories you're creating, because I'd love to hear about them. Feel free to chat with me on any of my social media at MidnightCross, because I always enjoy hearing about the projects that you're creating. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!